Andrew and Linda had been married for 5 years. They weren't rushing into having kids. They figured it would happen, naturally, when the time was right. Andrew adored his wife. One of her quirks that completely charmed him was this. Every time Linda tried to lie, her cheeks went bright red, practically glowing like warning lights. He discovered that little tell way back when they first started dating. He'd ask a question and watch her cheeks flush red. If she tried to FIB for Andrew, it was downright convenient. She was like a living lie detector. As spring rolled around, Linda started dropping not-so-subtle hints about taking a vacation. She'd had enough of the winter blues and wanted to soak up sun by the sea. Andrew, on the other hand, wasn't into beach vacations at all. Plus, it was a terrible time for him to take off work. But Linda was relentless, fixated on her plan, even picking out a hotel and some cool boat tours she wanted to take. How about I go with my friend Lisa this time? She proposed, eyes sparkling with mischief. Then when you finally get your break, we can go wherever you want. Andrew knew Lisa's family. She was married, and they had a 6-year-old boy who Lisa would likely leave with grandma for the trip. Lisa was super family or oriented, so it didn't seem like there'd be any shady adventures going on, so Andrew caved in. He bought plane tickets, booked the hotel, and gave Linda extra cash for tours and souvenirs. Then on the day of departure, he drove her and Lisa to the airport. During the first week, Linda flooded Andrew's phone with photos of gorgeous sunsets, scenic ocean views, each message declaring, "I wish you were here to see all this with me." The second week, the updates all but stopped, which was sort of fine because Andrew was swamped at work anyway. They still texted occasionally, mostly about the weather or Linda's plans for the day. Finally, Linda came back home. Andrew picked her up and drove her back to their place. Right after stepping inside, she started lamenting how the air just isn't the same here, but then they headed to the kitchen for dinner. As Andrew asked about their trip, Linda kept saying how she wished he'd come, because sometimes it got dull, just being with her friend. Eventually, she went to the bedroom town pack. Andrew flopped onto the bed and turned on the TV for background noise. "So did you bring me anything?" Hesked teasingly. In that moment, Linda was pulling out a stack of clothes from her suitcase and suddenly froze, staring at something in there. Andrew sat up, peering into the suitcase too. He spotted a bottle of wine wrapped in a bright t-shirt. "Oh, I brought you some wine," Linda blurted, pulling the bottle free of the t-shirt and handing it to him. "And what's with this shirt?" Andrew asked, grabbing it and giving it a curious once over. "The vendor packaged that way to keep it safe from breaking." I was kind of surprised, but figured whatever, she said with a laugh. She bent back over the suitcase, face turned away from Andrew before he could press further. They got onto some other topic, and the conversation about the wine just drifted away. But later, when Andrew was alone with his thoughts, that odd moment came rushing back. Linda's stunned expression when she found that bottle, the mention that she was supposedly surprised to see it. How do you forget buying your husband a gift? A suspicion started gnawing at him. Maybe that wine wasn't for him at all, and she was just covering it up, determined to get answers. He hopped onto the hotel's social media page, the one Linda had stayed at. They regularly posted pictures from various events around the property. Scrolling through, Andrew suddenly stopped in one photo from some nighttime entertainment. Linda and her friend stood front row laughing. The entertainer, presumably a staff member or local performer, was wearing a shirt identical to the one that had been wrapped around the bottle. Sure, it could be a coincidence, but Andrew doubted it. He recalled how flustered Linda was. A scenario formed in his mind. Linda was bored, missing him, so she ended up meeting some charming entertainer at the resort. Sometime after the first week's daily photos, she got busy with this new friend, and maybe as a last gesture, that performer gifted her a bottle of wine wrapped in his own shirt. A sweet, or maybe not so sweet, reminder of their fling. Andrew could barely concentrate at work after that. Discovery rage simmered beneath his every move. By the time he got home that evening, he found Linda in the kitchen on her phone. "Hey, I was thinking we could maybe order some," she started, then trailed off at the look on his face. "Andrew, what's wrong? Just answer one thing." "Linda," he said coolly, "did you cheat on me during that trip?" What kind of nonsense is that?" she snapped. "Yes or no, simple question. "No way, I would never," she exclaimed indignantly, but right then her cheeks flared bright red. Andrew had his answer. What a fool she was, he thought. Why do something that'll force you to lie, knowing your face will give you away? She'd clearly assumed he'd never figure it out. But her souvenir from the entertainer had ruined the cover story he told her to pack her things and leave Linda, cried but realized. Andrew was seconds away from losing it, so she didn't push him. She threw her clothes into a suitcase and walked out of his life. Andrew knew he'd never forgive that sort of betrayal from the woman he loved filing for divorce. Felt like his only option, it destroyed him to do so. But what choice did he have? This was her decision, and every choice has consequences. Linda ended up renting a tiny apartment on the outskirts of town, the only place she could afford. Mutual friends said she was miserable, regretting it all. Andrew joked that she probably regretted losing her future beach vacations more than anything. Eventually, the pain eased for him and he found a silver lining. At least they split before kids came into the picture. As one final measure, he quietly let Lisa's husband know about Linda's little vacation fling, just in case Lisa got any bright ideas about traveling. Alone in the end, Andrew moved on with his life, older, wiser, and free of a wife who'd once caused him so much heartache.